How do we get there from being seen as this technician, this craftsperson who can write a good memo, talk to the journalist, and be seen as someone who is right there with them, a partner in their decision making? We're going to go through several different techniques, and some of them you're going to have a chance to practice. One of them is making sure that we measurably connect what we're doing in communication to their goals, even when they don't come to us with a goal. Part of it is helping them clarify, why are they requesting this communication? How will this affect their business results? So we actually start being the credible partner in how we interact with them before we take on the assignment. How we talk it through with them, the questions we ask them that they may not have asked themselves. We also need to learn a new language, the numbers language. If we just talk in words, after a few words, all they hear is blah, blah, blah. But if we keep throwing numbers into what we're talking about, their ears keep perking up because this is the language that they speak. Once we speak that same language, they pay more attention to us. They see us as more credible ourselves. Not only should we be good at what we do in communication, but we need to know the businesses within which we work. Because if they don't feel that we understand the business, they won't think that we understand communication. It's not logical, but there it is. And we need to learn some new consulting skills, like prioritizing. I think you mentioned earlier that everything's a priority. We need to have some tools for showing how to prioritize. We need to also anticipate and initiate that getting a seat at the table, I recommend not getting a seat at the table. I recommend finding a table, setting it, and inviting other people to it. Because if you just sit there and wait to be invited, you're going to grow very old and very disappointed. Because nobody gets invited to that table. There's a few people who are, by virtue of their job titles, meeting on a regular basis. But when decisions or solutions are being developed, it's people who create their own table that get those things going. And there's some consulting skills that we are sometimes lacking. That people who've done consulting for a long time have learned some techniques for how to build rapport with a client, and you've got your internal clients. Wait, how many of you are actually in organizations versus consultants? How many of you work within an organization? And consultants. Okay, all right, so that just got a little fix on what we have. There's some listening skills, and the really important skill we're going to do and practice near the very end is how to present solutions to management in a way that they're more likely to do the right thing. So let me back up a little bit. And are you starting the videotape now? Okay. We're looking for a 15-minute segment and a 5-minute segment. One of the things that I find very useful was some research that was done, I think in the 1990s, maybe the very late 80s, from two researchers, both named Grunig, happened to be married to each other, Dr. James and Dr. Larissa Grunig. And it's part of something called the Excellence Study. It was sponsored by the International Association of Business Communicators and cost an enormous amount of money at the time. That was what I mostly remember about the study. But what they were looking for is what is it that makes for excellent communication within an organization? And after all kinds of different types of research, they found that there were 3 key things. The first one was if the organization itself had a participative culture, more likely for excellent communication to occur. The other thing that's second best would be a changing culture. Whatever it is, if it's evolving to something else, the virtue of all that change occurring presents enormous opportunities for communication to shine and make a difference. So ideal is participative, next best is changing. So that's the environment that it helps to be in. You cannot control that. Now we're going to get to things that you have a little bit more control over. The next thing they identified was that you needed to have shared expectations between senior leadership and the communicators as to what constitutes good communication. There isn't one single definition of what good communication is. It's just whatever it is, it needs to be agreed upon. So if the executives see it as just a bunch of written stuff, and you see it as a lot of relationship building, you're not going to find common ground. You'll constantly be fighting, and communication will not go well. If you both agree that it should just be written, you'll have very, very good written communication because you won't be fighting all the time. So sometimes you need to adapt your own thinking, and sometimes you need to elevate their thinking. So we'll talk about what these different models of communication might be. And the core of it is the communicator's knowledge. So there's an assumption that you've got the core skills of writing and production and all of the techniques of what we do in communication. But there were certain elements of the communicator's knowledge that needed to be strong for communication in the organization to be strong. And some of these are what we're going to work on this afternoon.